What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you. And one that was on my list because I was a big fan of their last one, and I didn't realize they actually had so many albums. We are going to go over the latest offering from Hangman's Chair, Saddiction. This also comes out on the 14th of February on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 2005 in France. This is their 7th album overall.
Jesus.
Though I think their shift to what they currently do is more recent. I think this band started off as more of a stoner doom band and then kind of shifted over to gothic, metal, post-rock, ambient. We'll get into it. I only recently got into this band with their last album, A Loner. It was almost on my year-end list in 2022. I immediately got, heavy vibes of Typo Negative and a lot of other things that I love. And baseline, I guess you could call this like gothic tinged doom-ish metal. I don't know. Like, it was easier to describe before, and it's not as easy to describe now. But it's awesome either way.
Today is my first day having heard this band, and I realized that I've been missing out. I had no idea what this was. Hangman's Chair, I just was like, okay. I saw they were on Nuclear Blast Records. I was like, okay, well, cool. Even them being on Nuclear Blast and having the idea that they sounded like Typo Negative did not fully prepare me for what I heard. To go into this record, opens up with the track To Know the Night, and right off the bat, it is the biggest, largest, most lush thing pretty much ever. Big, dissonant, cold, droning melody, and huge. Just huge. Layers upon layers of very pretty, lush sound. When the vocals kicked in, I was immediately reminded of Pallbearer.
Yeah, this band does draw some comparisons to Pallbearer, and I would feel like their earlier stuff would probably draw even more comparisons. But vocally, it's there, though. I think this band is a little bit stronger vocally. There's definitely a lot more harmonies. And in terms of, like, the vocals and the melodies themselves, it's definitely different than Pallbearer. Because, honestly, like, as, lush and as kind of gloomy as this is, I did not feel an overwhelming tsunami of depression roll over my body, much like what happens when I listen to Pallbearer. I love that band.
Yeah.
But, Jesus, they're depressing. This band, in particular, it's more about the lush beauty and atmosphere. Reverb on everything. First off, this production's beautiful. It sounds amazing. The reverb on the drums is probably one of my favorite things. When you get these isolated moments, you can just hear it kind of ring out like they're playing in the biggest concert hall ever.
Yeah, playing in the biggest concert hall ever, but they're the only people there. Like, it's vast. Absolutely huge.
Almost cinematic at points, like it could have scored an 80s movie. And that's another big distinction. This has that Pallbearer vibe, but it also has, like, 80s post-punk and 80s pop sort of mixed in. When it comes down to, like, the melodies themselves, like, yes, there are huge, droning, heavy riffs all over here. The song Healed, I would say In Disguise, especially towards the end of that song. Canvas, you have these big, thick, droning riffs. And when they're isolated, honestly, they kind of sound like Meshuggah's guitars, which, we probably know that that's heavy. But in terms of, like, comparing it to, again, like something like Meshuggah, the tone and the vibe of this is night and day. This is kind of soft and ethereal. Again, it's bottom heavy though. Like, it is droning, and when the guitars really come out to, like, just absolutely clobber you, they are massively heavy. But it's kind of like one of those deceptively heavy things, like Deftones. Generally, you don't think of Deftones as, like, super heavy unless you've been listening to them for a while and like, certain songs are just like, dude, trust me, that's heavy. Like Diamond Eyes. Breakdown on the end of that song is, like, one of the heaviest moments in their career. You get moments like that on here, but everything is just drenched in lush beauty. And the builds, my God. Everything about this album has, like, an interesting momentum. It floats and kind of, like, drifts into these parts rather than, like, like, more labored, more, like, intense, sharper transitions. Everything on here is just silky smooth, like the satin sheets that I imagine this band probably all sleeps under at night.
100%. And normally in bands like this kind of heavy that we're describing is normally oppressive, but it's not really. It's heavy with emotion, but I didn't feel overly sad. I felt relaxed and soothed for the most part.
Yeah, like I would say like this is like the heaviest soft rock album I think I've ever listened to. Like it just has this aura to it where it feels like it's telling you, hey, everything's gonna be all right. And in that voice, it's very calming. But then the next moment you get these giant, lurching, huge droning riffs. So you get this like really interesting give and take. And again, the builds on here, there's a lot of like post-rock and like post-metal elements. Like, you know, I would say like stuff like ISIS and their cleaner moments, like stuff off of like, I would say like Panopticon, or a band like Caspian, or This Will Destroy You, like the big lush post-rock stuff where it builds from the quietest moment to these grand layered heights.
Or even stuff like Russian Circles or Devin Townsend Project. Well, it's not so much by way of the vocals, it's definitely by way of the layers and the lushness and the builds. A good example of that would be the song Neglect. Neglect has a really slow burn to it. I mean, it's almost like a ballad style post-rock sort of thing. It's very slow, and it takes a good long time to build.
And a lot of that has to do with the guitars and the vocals. Guitar-wise, it's not just like droning riffs and such. There's lots of like cool atmospheric sections and beautiful, clean sections. Kowloon Lights and The Worst Is Yet to Come in particular, there's a lot of like post-punk melodies on there, especially on The Worst Is Yet to Come. There's actually stuff on there that kind of reminds me of like Killing Joke's Love Like Blood. It kind of has that, you know, just kind of like clean but haunting, almost like submerged underwater sort of sound to the guitars. In a way, it's kind of like Gojira meets like, you know, flat out 80s goth rock. Honestly, the song The Worst Is Yet to Come, I feel like that was like a missing track that should have been on the Crow soundtrack back in 94.
Wow, yes. Wow.
I know, doesn't that hurt when they say the year it came out? And songs like In Disguise and Neglect, there are some big 80s Pink Floyd moments, like namely Momentary Lapse of Reason. You get the lush synths, the washed out drums, and these beautiful, like almost little bluesy atmospheric flutters in the guitars. Like when it comes down to like lead play on here, it's mostly just like layers of atmospheric melodies, and that goes between synths and guitars. But there's some like David Gilmour-isms in the guitar playing, and then the vocals. The vocals, man, the vocals are rich. They are huge. They are layered. Everything's drenched in reverb. We'll just say that. This has got like reverb gravy all over it. But how they switch up, like you have these much higher register vocals, which I didn't remember those being as prominent on A Loner. Here, you get lots of big vocal harmonies, but you also got these like quiet, more intimate kind of breathy vocals that show up. You know, Neglect is a big one. 44 Yod, whatever that number means. You get the David Gilmour effect where they're kind of breathy and soothing.
Whispered.
Yeah, it's just like gently whispering in your ears like, shh, you can sleep tonight. The goblins under your bed won't get you. David's going to protect you. That'll be $250. All of it combines to this very like moody, I wouldn't say like pitch black dark. It's more gray hues. Like, I know, like the whole thing that I think of when I hear this album are like kind of like rainy cityscapes and such. But again, it's not overwhelmingly depressive. Like this doesn't squeeze the happiness out of your body. It kind of pulls you in, and I think that has a lot to do with just like how they write their riffs and do their vocal harmonies, because a lot of it is in the key changes. The key changes you'd expect in Doom, generally like, all right, let's drag them down in the pit of depression where they'll never escape. It's not like that on here. The key changes are honestly very soaring and very bright. Very similar to like, you know, like poppy goth rock, like, you know, the big hooky songs by Sisters of Mercy.
Unto Others. Tribulation.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even those bands, again, it feels a little bit more dark and sinister and moody at times. Here, it feels so lush and immense that you kind of like just bow in its aura, and you know, it doesn't feel, again, like depressing.
And again, I think a lot of that is akin to the vocals. The vocals play a really huge part in making this kind of a more soaring event than it is the darker thing. Because the vocals, I'm telling you what, they cry to the gods, dude. In 44 Yod, it goes from a whisper to these giant, epic, harmonized vocals, and it's just like yelling into the ether. Like, it's beautiful. The vocals are amazing on here. Kowloon Lights is the same way, too. That's a very vocally driven song. I mean, they're not screamed at any time. And again, too, it's where they sit. They're not overly out front. The layering of everything kind of really takes a hold of most of this, but the vocals sit a little bit in the back, but at the same time, they're big, soaring vocals. And I don't know, the harmonies hit at all the right times. And a lot of the key changes are very subtle.
There's a weird balance harkened between, again, like the atmosphere and when you get these heavier riffs. The atmosphere, again, is like very ethereal, very soft. And then when the riffs hit, they are sonically heavy. Mm-hmm. They are thicker than hell. This is like, you know, Jello 1, 2, 3, except it's only 2 layers. The top layer is like water vapor and the bottom layer is concrete. And it has this shoegazy, you know, very like hypnotic quality to it. But the songs are very dynamic. There's lots of cool builds to them. It doesn't drone on stuff too long. In fact, most of the songs are like, you know, not too long. Like the longest song on here, I think, is like maybe a little bit over 7 minutes with the last track, Healed. But it doesn't hang on to a spot too long without adding something to it to kind of build it. In Disguise in particular, I love the dynamics in that song. I love that song, period.
Yeah.
Very atmospheric. It's a little bit softer. Like, you don't get like the wash of guitars right away. It's very clean sounding, but you get to this big chorus and they build it up so well. There's like this faster drum build and then crash right into this slow groove right at like the peak of the chorus.
It reminded me of how I felt during Tribulation's last record, actually. The kind of sexiness that Murder and Red had. It's kind of the same vibe. It's just a slow kind of crooning builder, and it hits really hard for something so simplistic.
I would say like this definitely has like a minimalist quality. Like, you know, it's a lot of like letting notes ring on. There's not a lot of intricate riffs. I don't expect intricate riffs in this style of music, but it's all about the vibe and the mood. Like, this album, if there was a special edition for it, it should have come with like a Groupon for like a fog machine and like some laser lights. That would have been the perfect vibe. But again, there's like these just subtle things about it. Like, I wore Torch on purpose for this one because if you strip away a lot of like, you know, the distortion and the heaviness and the riffs, you would have like more flat out goth rock, but you'd also have a lot of 80s pop. That also curtails into the vocals. The vocals have like 80s pop sensibilities about just big hooks. The choruses are all beautiful. Again, the vocal harmonies hit the right spot. But it's kind of the same thing with Torch, just in a different sense, because if you strip off their ungodly heavy sludge tone, you have power pop. You have like Foo Fighters style hooks.
Yeah.
It's the same idea, but employed differently. And this one, I feel like typo negative is still a kind of a big part of it, especially in, again, the bills, like the swells of atmosphere and these absolutely lush synths all over here. The synths are ever present. There's like this constant, like warm background hum to this entire album. And that kind of adds this, like, again, very soothing effect. Like, it is dense. It's massive sounding, but like the weight of it, you know, it feels like it's liftable. Like, it's not just crushing you under its boot heel like, well, most Doom should.
It's like lifting a beanbag chair. It's this big, heavy thing, and if you put it on top of you, you're definitely going to be fully encompassed by a beanbag chair. It's going to cover you, you know, for sure. But it's not so heavy that you can't throw it off of you either.
Yeah, someone's been sitting on it too, so it's already warm.
Yeah.
And hopefully they didn't fart in it. As far as any negatives on here, man, there really aren't many. The one thing that I could probably nitpick, 44 Yod, which is one of my favorite songs, it's probably like one of the most like dynamic in terms of going from like quiet and droning to just absolutely huge. It has this really cool build towards the end, and you feel like you're going to get like another heavy section towards the end, and it kind of just drones out on that one like kind of spot, which is nice. It's awesome. It's pretty, but I was kind of like gearing myself up for another big swell of like heavy droning riffs and emotion and all that, which we got plenty of that on Healed, which is just a fucking heavy,
dude, Healed is so awesome.
Heavy song.
Oh, so awesome.
But that's kind of the only complaint. Like, I love the vocals, the guitar, the production, everything. everything on this album sounds amazing, and God, it was like having my brain massaged by riffs.
Yeah. I don't really have any complaints. If I were going to pull one out of thin air, it would be that this is only 9 songs. I could have actually listened to like 20 songs by this band. Really, the song Healed, I'm going to be honest with you, they could have played that song forever, and I wouldn't have cared. I don't really have any complaints. And because of that, I'm going to give this 4.5 stars, and I'm going to be totally honest with everybody. I could easily justify a 5. I'm not going to do that to myself because it's only February. We're only at the midpoint in February. We're 6 weeks into the new year. I have no idea what's coming, but this is easily a 4.5. Vast space, lush, stony, soothing. Again, heavy with emotion, but not oppressive. I can't wait to drive with this record at night. I can't wait to listen to it in the car. It sounds amazing. The production on here is sheer perfection. This record is like floating, wrapped in a blanket that is fresh out of the dryer, like on a cold day. It feels that good. I want to listen to 2 a.m. thoughts at 2 in the morning. The end of the song, Neglect, legit gave me chills. The music is beautiful. Again, lush, layered, pretty. The vocals are absolutely epic. I'm not going to continue to suck off this record because I have to leave Nick things to say. But yeah, if you're a fan of bands like the Deftones and Pallbearer and a little bit of Gojira, like around Magma era, onto others, Typo Negative, Depeche Mode, Pink Floyd, and probably a myriad of others that I'm not even thinking of, check this out. I love this album.
I am also at a 4.5, and I was a big fan of A Loner. I'm a bigger fan of this one. This is absolutely beautiful, and again, like, it has this uniquely sort of heavy vibe to it where, again, it's sonically just drenched in heaviness, but at the same time, it feels so serene, and it sort of shimmers, and I don't know, like, there's just so much beauty on here with the goth rock and post-rock elements, the quiet, intimate moments building into just bone-crunching, heavy, droning riffs. The production here is fucking perfect. And again, the like pop sensibilities about the vocal hooks and the key changes. These have legit awesome earworms on them. But again, they still have this sort of like darkened tinge to them. I still think this might be like the heaviest soft rock album ever. Like, this is like the like droning, heavy post-metal version of Air Supply or something. I don't care. I love it. It's amazing. If you're a big fan of, I mean, again, Deftones, Killing Joke, Caspian, Torch in a way too. 80s Pink Floyd, especially, Momentary Lapse of Reason. I think that just has a lot of elements of that too. And the more lush ambient side of a band like ISIS. All those things, check this album out. Absolutely amazing. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and we do a members-only live stream as our lone perk, which we will be trying to do like every month. And we'll try to figure out if we're going to do like a specific subject or just do a general chit-chat. Either one's fun because you guys generally ask fun questions and we behave stupidly for your entertainment.
Yes, we do.
And we do that in regular streams as well, too. But memberships are the main way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below in the video description. But if you would like to join and become a member of this thing, I feel like we're just auditioning my basement. You're not going to be a member of my basement, but the channel, there's a join button down below somewhere.
And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal, because that's all we do anymore. Album reviews, discography rankings. We got At the Gates coming up next, which is going to be fucking awesome. Tons of talking forums. Is it metal? Is it not metal? States of Metal. Nick's never-ending collection updates. Multiple live streams. Again, our member streams. We're doing all metal all the time, and it's all for you guys because we appreciate you. Thank you to everybody that's a part of this channel. All of our subscribers, our family, our friends, everybody that makes this a whole hell of a lot more special than two jackasses in a basement talking about metal. We appreciate you. Thank you.
And we're pretty special, too. With
we are.
The helmet and a cape and probably snowshoes and a onesie.
Yep.
Yeah, all those things. But seriously, you guys absolutely rule. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And we will catch you later.